So I will be discussing about how do you go beyond journey maps? How do you operationalize the journeys? And how do you transform your organization to become more customer-centric? In essence, that's what the JourneyOps is about. Short story first, and this is actually the reason why we are here today. How I first kind of got the idea of like let's focus on the journey management. It started about 3.5 years ago. I was working with the team. We were working with one large brand, helping them to define the kind of long-term customer experience vision, and then the kind of CX strategy to take them there from the challenges of today. They had decided in their management team that they wanted to be customer-centric. And our role was to like help them to understand what does it really mean? What does it mean to be customer-centric, and what kind of experience would it be for their customers? So we did like you normally do. We did a lot of kind of customer research first, mapping out the current journeys, all the pain points, challenges, different kind of personas, and understanding where the like strengths and weaknesses were. And at the same time, our team was doing also a lot of like stakeholder interviews, trying to understand like why the experience was like it was, like how were they actually producing the experience with their organization and their technical capabilities. Once we were done with the whole discovery part, we then worked really hard together to define the kind of the long-term vision, workshop with them, like ran design sprints and defined the kind of inner life of as a customer in the future, when all the things that we mapped out actually would be materialized. And once we finished the project, it was like probably one of my highlights, emotional highlights of my career. We felt like really good. It felt that okay, it was a like really big project, took like several months, and we involved so many people along the way that now it was like definitely a kind of successful story. We celebrated. Everybody on our side and client side were really happy, and then we left the team to continue with the path that we had defined together. Then fast forward a couple of years forward, and I had a chance to work with the same organization again, and I was really curious because I wanted to really see that project that I was so proud of, that what had it actually yielded, what kind of experience leaps had they made, because we really defined leaps for them. But much to my disappointment and surprise was that maybe 20% of the things that we agreed were actually done. And when I did some interviews with the people, like why was it so? Like did they change the direction? Did they kind of suddenly realize that this was like, it wasn't real, that like let's move to some other direction? That wasn't really the case. The case was more on that after that work project, which was like really involving the whole company, all the way from the top management to the front-end employees. After that project, the assignment to actually do the transformation was handed over to the CX team. And the CX team, being one of the silos on parallel with the others, like was in phase with the task that they just didn't have the kind of mandate or the power to transform the organization. So in essence, like we defined that you want to be customer-centric, but it was like assigned to for that one team to succeed. And that's not really how you can do that. For me personally, this was like a wake-up call. I started to question my professional capabilities. That, okay, I've been doing the same kind of approach for like X amount of customers, and I'm always thinking that these things like are now good on a good path, and that have I actually been failing my customers over the years? And that's why I started to look for like really for solutions, and I discovered like customer journey management, and that's why we are here. Like, because I really want you all to succeed on implementing the customer experience strategies, and not just to create a lot of PowerPoints and a lot of promises, and then a couple of years later do the same exercise again. So then if you think about like how customer journeys, we think about customer journeys, I still remember the time when I was like so amazed whenever we used customer journeys in the kind of workshop. We printed out these amazing like wall-size printouts. Sometimes we had like hand-drawn journey maps. And then we spent like a lot of time with the team in front of those innovating new solutions, thinking about how do we fix the pain points that the customers have. Then came COVID, and suddenly like it was scary to be in the same room with the people. Like this kind of event organizing during the COVID time was like impossible. everybody would have been so scared that there would have been probably 1 or 2 persons here. And what happened to the journey maps was that they moved online. So we started using Miro, Figma, Mural, sometimes even Excel to map out the journeys, and people gather around those like digital versions of the journeys, but remotely. But what didn't change in that digitalization was that the map was still the same, but now it was in the cloud. It was still the snapshot of a moment when it was like built. It reflected the research that was done in the past. It didn't reflect the current situation. And that's like really the kind of the key on like if you go from having those static customer journeys, when you operationalize those, they don't stay static, they become dynamic, and you start using them on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to go through some challenges that I have discovered over the years that a lot of the like organizations face. Hopefully these are familiar to you so that they are not something that I think are real challenges. But like the first challenge that I see is the prioritization, like how organizations decide what get actually built. What do we do next quarter? Like how do we decide on what should we focus on? And what I have realized is that like when you talk to people and you analyze like how organizations work, for you all, this triple diamond is probably familiar. But in many cases, if you really think about in your respective organization, that first diamond gets often skipped. You might get a brief that, okay, we want to build this kind of service. There's no customer insights, no kind of reason why we are actually doing that. And then you move on to the actually building that. And organizations are really good and efficient on building things. But I think the biggest challenge for them that they face is that they build the wrong things in the first place. So in order to like start really making it being more customer centric, you should really start thinking it through the balance of having customer value and the business value. Those should be equally important. Like you can't create solutions that customers don't really value. And you shouldn't create solutions that customers value that don't have any business like meaning. So having this kind of balance is really important. And then like if you think about in this line, so here we have the kind of the first diamond. After that comes like opportunities. And now those opportunities that you score against customer value and business value, then when you start doing like journey operations, you start putting them into the matrix and doing the prioritization based on these two axes. So now if you think about that, okay, I'm doing a project, where should we pick the things that we actually start working on first? Probably is the top right corner that is the best bet. And I think like if you just do this one, if you manage to like impact the prioritization of your organization, you start to realize you start creating less features, less new services, but the ones that you actually create have a much more higher engagement with the customers. Okay, then familiar to all, organizational silos. Some call it as a curse word, but I think it's not really something that organizations want to do. It's more on the fact that because they are so large, it just automatically happens. I had about a year ago, I was meeting Virta, this kind of scale-up phase startup. And we were in a meeting room, which was like maybe there were like 12 seats. And in that meeting room, we had customer experience design, digital design, we had the brand, we had the product management there, and marketing. And you could just see that they didn't have any silos. They were talking about exactly the same things. There was no problems there. But if you scale that upwards, if you think about like city of Helsinki, like there's probably going to be a lot of silos unintentionally because they just happen. They're so big that you can't really like see beyond the silos. And what customer journey management's purpose is to bring that like one platform where you have like one common shared view to the customer experience and your business as well. And even if you are not constantly discussing in the same table, you are still looking at that same view of the customer. This is actually one of my favorites because I see that there's a lot of I always think about, and I had good discussion with Leo during the break, that how do you actually sell this internally with your organizations? And this is one way actually to, if you fix this challenge, that a lot of the organizations have a lot of assets, you measure a lot of things, you collect a lot of data, and you have built a lot of assets like segmentations, personas, etc. But like what typically ends up happening is that they are really not connected. And they are, might be owned, like for instance, channel analytics, there's a team that owns that and they produce reports. But then who uses those reports is probably a subset of your organization. Now there's a lot of value in this one. And the purpose of like journey management is to really just be the connecting tissue between these things and really make it available, accessible for the entire organization. Not to invent any new data necessarily, just to surface the data and the insight so that everybody can use those. I have done a lot of kind of research in my past. I've been worked in a company which was like very research focused. And what I have lately started to think is because it seems that there's never enough research. And the research it's quite often is quite reactive by nature. There is a need in a project and your research team or researchers get called upon that do the research. And when they start, the brief almost says immediately that there's not enough time, there's not enough resources, and we are waiting for the results. Like how long does it take to actually do that? So what ends up happening is that you make a lot of compromises. When you are done with the research, you present the insights for the team, and then you rush to the next project, and the team picks up the insights and moves on. But those insights are not reusable because, first of all, they weren't created that thinking in mind, and they live in some PowerPoint in somewhere in some drive, and they are used by the small team. You never actually accumulate anything. You just carry water to the well, and it doesn't really raise the surface. So what if we would actually start thinking about research function differently? What if it would be more proactive? So if you, like now we are in January, end of January. So what if you are like running a research organization or team or are a researcher, like what are your objectives this year? How are you actually going to be working on this? And what if instead of like serving those kind of custom projects with their particular needs, your task and your goal actually would be to understand your customers, like really in a detailed level, like who they are, what kind of experience do they have across the kind of customer journeys. And when you are doing this analysis, let's say that this year you would start looking at like doing research with the mindset of that I want to bring this knowledge to our organization. Then by the end of the year, you would have something, okay, we have covered part of the basis, and then we have gaps in certain areas. So then this would form a kind of the next year's kind of task or next quarter's task. So in essence, the idea is to kind of complete the like journeys with all the insights. And now if let's say that I'm the product manager and I want to start a new project and I need the insight. So instead of me asking to do an insight project, let's say that I'm working on a purchase phase, I look at the journeys there. What do we already know about the customers? What kind of pain points are we trying to solve? And if there's enough insights there, good, then I can continue. I don't have to wait anyone. I can just continue and move on. Or if I need to do something else, then I feed it in as a kind of backlog item for the research team that whenever they do the next big research round, that they actually complete. So start accumulating the research insights into something. I did a lot of research on different kind of insight repositories a few years ago, and the challenge with those is that they are meant more for the kind of researchers. If you want to expose the insights for the wider organization, I claim that journey management tools are much better equipped for that. Then the last challenge is that there's really very few organizations that can nominate that there's somebody responsible of the end-to-end journey. Typically, organizations, and the more mature they are, it seems that the more granular the focus is. So in this case, as an example, there might be some company where there's a person or a team that is focused purely on the chat function. They try to optimize that. They have a backlog of features that they want to develop for that, and their view to that world is that. But if you think about like from the customer point of view, that's just one step along the whole journey. Another question is that who really on your organization is looking at the end-to-end journeys and trying to optimize your own touch points, and also the touch points on your points of your kind of partners, and also understanding what other things the customers go through along their journey. And this, I think, this calls for that you in your organizations you need new roles, and I know that it's a tough sell to say new roles. That's why it might mean also that it's just new role descriptions. So you need to nominate people to own the kind of the end-to-end journeys, and their focus should be to understand first what is the journey experience today, define that long-term vision, and then optimize the cross-organizational efforts to improve that experience. Thank you.